We back, bitch.
All my life I've been considered as the worst.
After hours, drowsy stepping, hear the sermon, hold the reverend. Long distance relationships with 777s. Who'da guessed it? Feeling washed up before his prime mic sessions. And as for rhyming, it's his own.
Good evening, my fellow nomads, party people and strangers everywhere across the internet. My name is V, and welcome back to After Hours Reviews Retro Night, where, to kick off the series once again, I'm going to be talking about something I've kind of taken some time out recently to see after so long, which is the 1989 version of Stephen King's novel of Christine. Now, to explain why I saw this movie, I was basically in this weird assumption that Christine is going to be remade into the brand new Stephen King cinematic universe, even though we've already kind of had one, but then we just made a new one because Dark Towers now exists, which means now trying to make an official span of the universe, but we already had that before the Dark Towers, which is just everything except now the Dark... You know, it doesn't fucking matter. If you guys don't know what the story of Christine is, as my cat is now just jumping on my chair, the basic story of Christine is that a lowly, nerdy, and very, very repressed child of Artie or Arnie, I think it's Artie, maybe it's Arnie, one of those A's, Cunningham, happens to find a pristine, well, not really pristine, it's a piece of shit, but to him it's a pristine antique vehicle back during the 1950s that he wants to restore to become his brand new whip. Because in the 80s it all worked out that, well, you could work at a job and get a car with no real complaints for under $1,000 and still afford to go to college, as well as get a place to live and still be secure in the fact that nothing will go wrong. The 80s. Anyway, with that being the main foil of it, you're just like, but how is this a Stephen King story? There's nothing horror related or suspenseful or something that is an allegory. That's where you're wrong. Because this kid is a bully character and he has a best friend that's super popular, we have to have something supernatural happen to tip the scales to where the best friend is now going to be the savior, and the nerdy kid is now going to be the person that happens to cause mayhem and destruction around the city. I'm assuming somewhere in Maine. So, what is supernatural force? Well, if you go by the book logic, it's actually the car that's possessed by the soul of its previous owner, because his wife wanted to get rid of the car because their child died in it, choking to death. We have no idea how she choked to death because it's weird. And then the wife was killed by exhaust valves being suffocated to death in the vehicle. And so the owner of the car killed himself in the vehicle and is possessing the car as we speak, as Cunningham is trying to restore the vehicle in the book. In the movie, it's never explicit as to if it's a vengeful soul or if it's the car actually being alive. It's always up to interpretation for the adaptation purposes, because they don't go into a lot of details. Whatever the case may be, the car is alive and it's attaching itself onto Arnie, who's in love with the car. Like, I don't mean autophilia. I don't think so. Like, maybe if the exhaust valve kind of seems like it's super sticky, then we already know what Arnie does with the car. I'm not judging, kind of, but I'm just saying it might be a factor that he is having sex with this car.
That shit is gross!
In any case, though, yes, restore his car. He's also trying to repair the car at this very seedy garage that's ran by someone that has a lot of illegal factors happening, where he has to transport illegal goods up and down to help afford the repairs and whatnot, but whatever, it's the 80s, no one gives a shit. So, how does that also tie into the factor of a horror thing? Well, we don't really see any horror until the girlfriend character that's kind of just there is first almost choked to death on a hot dog. We have no idea if the car is trying to choke the bitch with some hot dogs, because that wouldn't make any fucking sense because it's a goddamn car. Like, exhaust fumes, I can understand. Anything involving a seatbelt choking someone to death on their lungs and as well as their windpipes, I can understand. Hot dog. Explain that shit to me, because that just seems so fucking weird. And then it just starts to get a little bit worse and worse after some bully characters that were introduced to earlier just decide to beat the shit out of the car with pipe wrenches and so forth and so on. And then the car goes on a killing spree to kill all these people a la vehicular manslaughter type styles. You get what I'm saying? And then we have a detective character, and then you guys already see where this is going. I could go throughout the whole thing explaining the whole film, but you guys already see where this is going, so let's just get into the meat of everything about how I felt about this movie. That is... it's the oddest thing from Stephen King, and that's saying a lot. Comparing it to stuff like The Shining, Gerald's Game, 1928, I believe. Was it 1928? I think it was something in the 1920s involving that stupid farmer killing his wife to keep his farm, even though it wasn't his farm. Whatever. Salem's Lot, Pet Sematary, then the remake of Pet Sematary, Stephen King's It, then the remake of Stephen King's It, Shawshank Redemption, The Apt Pupil. Every single fucking story, even the Dark Tower series, they are all very much something that makes sense in comparison to this weird-ass story. Even Carrie and Firestarter, two very, very odd tales, if you just take a minute to look at them, make more sense than Christine in a lot of aspects. Like, if you use a vengeful spirit that's attached to the car, it's like, okay, I can kind of understand. But if you don't add the vengeful spirit, then it's just a little weird. It's like Maximum Overdrive, just more goofy and more serial killery, and also a little bit more of a sex romp in aspects because it's teenagers, because it's a 17-year-old that wants the booty, but he needs money in order to get the booty. But he can't get the booty because he's trying to get into the trunk of the car. So it's all that kind of weird shit. So, I don't know. I want to say I hate it for being this weird, but you guys already know. I love weird films and shit. Weird TV shows, love them. Weird plays, love them. Weird radio dramas, love them. Weird scripts that I make, love them. Weird scripts my friends make, love them. So, I don't know, I'm in a weird place with this. It literally has all the machinations that I like in a film. Oh god, it's daytime. That I like in a film, where it can be funny, it can have good timing on its whole pacing scheme, it has its own suspense for a horror type story. It tends to do stuff where you want to root for a certain character, whether it's a supporting character, main antagonist, the force behind the whole thing. But it's also nonsensical. The way that everything is supposed to be set up makes no sense. The bully characters are kind of just there as, like, you want to believe they're in high school, but they look and act like they're 40 on their way to the auditions to the Warriors set. I'm just like in a weird place with this, where I'm just like, how would I even rate this? So I'm just going to sit down even further in my chair, just maybe lowered it just a smidge, and I'm actually just gonna give this whole thing just to be very, very short on the whole thing, I'm gonna give this entire movie until they make the remake, try and make everything more streamlined and whatnot, I'm actually going to give this whole thing a 8.75 out of 13. Giving it a B- and awarding it 4.5 stars. But man, since we haven't really done After Hours Reviews Retro Night as it's now turning into day, I'm actually just going to now take the time to do this on a weekly basis to kind of get back into the swing of things, where I'm going to actually first talk to you guys about one of my favorite movies of all time, and then we're going to probably do something of, I think, I got it.
You crazy mother.